Presidente da Fundação Carlos Gulbenkian, Isabel Mota, Senhora Ministra Maria Manuel Leitão Marques, Senhora Secretária de Estado Graça Fonseca e todos aqui presentes. Thank you very much for coming. I really want to welcome you to this conference. And today is not an event for me. It's a milestone. Today, we mark a new era of social innovation in Europe. And the story of this conference began simply, as most things do, during a conversation with President Jean-Claude Juncker. He told me how important the social aspect of innovation was to him, and how important he believed that it would be for the future of Europe. Since then, with different conversations with the President, probably really one of the visionaries of a social Europe, the visionary for me of social Europe, we went into talks, first with his main advisor, my dear friend José Silva Peneda, then with my dear friend, the former Minister of Science of Portugal, Graça Carvalho, and we decided to come to Lisbon all together. We decided to come to Lisbon and to meet with the Minister, if you allow me the informality, Maria Manuel, and with Isabel, the President of Gulbenkian. And we didn't know what we really wanted that day, but immediately we saw the passion of Maria Manuel and Isabel, and we understood that the place to do it in Europe was here at Gulbenkian. And I could not be more proud of this event just because it takes place at a very unique place. I think that Gulbenkian is for me the pioneer of social innovation. You know, in the 70s, where a lot of Portuguese towns had no public library, Gulbenkian created social innovation. They had these mobile public libraries in a van that would go from town to town with books. And myself as a kid in the south of Portugal, we would wait for those vans to get the books. That was the first steps of social innovation. And Portugal is indeed a world leader in social innovation. Maria Manuel gave the example of color ADD. And you know, Maria Manuel, I met Miguel last year in Portugal. He came to me as an entrepreneur, and he told me about his story. And one of the things that really took me by surprise is that most entrepreneurs tell you about the story and what they do and how important it is. But for Miguel, I said, so what do you do in life? Why do you do it? Why are you transforming for colorblind people everything that they see? What makes you tick? And Miguel told me, you know, what makes me get up in the morning is the letters that I get from colorblind kids all over the world thanking me for what I do. And I think that social innovation is exactly about that. It's about a world that you imagine, a world that you're proud of living, but it's about two things, about the ability as a person that you have to create purpose to others, and the ability as an entrepreneur that you have to reduce inequality. And we had major advances in the last 50 years, but somehow today people feel disconnected from the world. With globalization, the very poor have become less poor. Globalization took more than 1 billion people out of poverty. Then globalization made a lot of people that were rich extremely rich. But at the end, the average citizen in the Western world got poorer. Those from the low and the middle classes in the Western economies became the latest victims of globalization. And I think that social innovation is the tool to change it. A decade ago, Bill Gates delivered a commencement speech at Harvard, my alma mater, and his words then echoed my own just now. He said humanity's greatest advances are not in its discoveries, but in how those discoveries are applied to reduce inequality, whether through democracy, strong public education, quality healthcare, or broad economic opportunity. Reducing inequality is the highest human achievement, end of quote. And for me, inequality is about solving those questions. How do we reduce inequality? How do you create purpose for the lives of others? And these, I think, are the fundamental questions of our time. Social innovation is just a tool to do it, a tool to include people in our society, those people who are feeling the brunt of inequality, who are living it day in and day out. And it can make it clear that there's a role for them to play, that society will not forget them. In my adopted home today, Belgium and Brussels, Ibrahim Ouassari dropped out of school at the age of 13, seeing no future for himself there. He could easily become, really at the time, another disillusioned young man from Molenbeek. Molenbeek is an area of Brussels with one of the lowest average household incomes in Belgium. Instead, he went the other way. He transformed himself in a high-tech entrepreneur, and now he's trying to recruit others like him. He's doing a project called Molengeek, and Molengeek is exactly an upskilling and mentoring for young people to find purpose for those, and actually for him. It gives individuals a platform to develop high-tech business ideas and sell them, provides a coding school for individuals to learn computer languages in order to program their projects. So in real terms, Molengeek helps people not only to conceive an entrepreneurial project, but also to find purpose in their lives. Those attending can future-proof their skills. They have a better chance to rebalance the scales in their favor so that inequality of their past does not define their future. Ibrahim is speaking here tomorrow at the session on skills for the future. And I hope that many of you will take time to listen and take away as much from his story as I have. So Ibrahim is not just reducing inequality, he's really helping to find what you cannot find today in the digital world, is meaning to your life. What are you here for? Are you changing someone's lives? And I think that the examples that we'll see here will go from so many different sectors, from what Ibrahim is doing, but also from sectors that you would not imagine could have a link to social innovation. I don't know if you have heard of Gerard Nyandiko. He's from Burkina Faso, and he was himself a patient of malaria. He contracted malaria. He faced the heartbreaking reality of watching 6 of his 12 siblings die of the disease. In Burkina Faso, his home, the only way to prevent mosquito bites and the malaria infection is through the use of mosquito nets and insecticides. It sounds simple, right? But the problem is that these solutions are not economically viable for people who live in poverty. So motivated by the goal to protect his own community, Gerard created a soap made from ingredients extracted from local plants. African marigold, shea butter, lemongrass, all components could be found in their own country. The soap he developed repels mosquitoes in an affordable way. It's a solution that by 2020 will save more than 100,000 lives. That's social innovation in health. And I admire Ibrahim and Gerard very much. I admire their tenacity, their determination to use their own experiences. But I admire most of them is that they are able to change the lives of so many without even looking back. That's their purpose. That's the purpose of their lives. This kind of focus on a single goal is what we'll try to bring into the next framework program of research and innovation. Social innovation has inspired me to change the way we look at science in Europe. We have to create missions that inspire people. And social innovation is a great example of that. Because if you define missions that inspire people, then you connect back Europe to people. And those missions are the ones that you're doing here in these couple of days, is to create the link in between your work and the world. And if you create that link, people understand what you do. So we will start by thinking about this idea of mission-driven science that links people to science. We will do things like prizes. Actually, I'm announcing today here a prize in social innovation that will be as big as the Nobel Prize. We will put a €1 million prize for someone that can help us to find solutions for mobility of senior people, for older citizens that suffer from the difficulty of moving, the difficulty of doing something that for us is obvious because we don't suffer from it, but we have to create solutions. And so the European Commission will award €1 million for the project that will find us better solutions for mobility of older citizens. Our society is aging, that's a fact, and we expect to have more than 88 million elderly European citizens by 2030. So we need to do our best. So our challenge will be that. So €1 million for the best proposal, 250,000 euros for 4 runner-ups. Submissions will be up until February 2019. So tell your friends, encourage others to do as well, because we want to create a mission in social innovation in Europe that people can link with. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm incredibly excited for what we are about to hear and see over the next 2 days. I've never seen so much anticipation for an event of this kind, and I can feel that in the room today. I've told you about my vision for our society. Let me tell you about my vision for this conference. Now is the time to come together with everyone in this room, the scientists, the innovators, the civil society, the investors, the students, the policymakers, and start a collective discussion to use all of our stories and experiences to leave this event with a more robust agenda for the future of social innovation in Europe. So let me finish with 10 years later, after Bill Gates said those words, the man that represents capitalism said those words about inequality. And 10 years later, the new generation of capitalists, the new generation of entrepreneurs came back to Harvard. It was Mark Zuckerberg that came to Harvard a couple of years ago to 10 years, really, after Bill Gates, to discuss about what he was doing, what was the drive of his life. And he started by telling a story that is very well known, but I think is worth mentioning. The day where President Kennedy went to NASA, and he saw in the 60s, getting into the corridors, he saw a janitor, a man with a broom, just cleaning the entrance. And the president asked him, "So, what are you doing here?" And he looked at the president, he said, "Mr. President, I am helping to put a man on the moon." That's the sense of purpose that we lost in Europe, and I think that social innovation can help us to get back. Zuckerberg, at the end of that day, a man that I don't even agree with a lot of things he does, but had really the sense that he invented Facebook, but he didn't invent purpose. That people go into the digital world, but they don't find the purpose of his life. And I wanted to finish quoting him because I think that he says it all. He said, "Every generation has its defining works. More than 300,000 people worked to put a man on the moon, including that janitor. Millions of volunteers immunized children around the world against polio. Millions of more people built the Hoover Dam and other great projects. These projects didn't just provide purpose for the people doing those jobs. They gave our whole country a sense of pride that we could do great things. So let's do it. Let's do it in Europe. Let's have social innovation as the drive for our change of connecting Europe to our citizens. Thank you very much.